Vikings 28, Giants 6. Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And 0-1 once again, Justin, and not just a regular old 0-1, but a heartbreaking, a pitiful, a disgusting, and embarrassing loss by the New York Giants to start their season. Justin, we're going to hit it from top to bottom, from Daniel Jones to the secondary, or the punt returner. We're going to hit it from a bunch of different angles. This is the first recap episode of the year. It's usually our most listened to, and I hate the fact that, once again, is talking about a team putting up nothing. You spend this whole offseason, you come out week one, and you put up nothing, dude. I'm so tired of doing this every year, right? We go into every year being like, all right, man, let's, it may not be the best year. Let's see what we can make of it. And week one, it just get a slap. It's just like a slap in the face.
Bobby, we've been doing this for a couple years together, you and I. And the phrase that I'm about to say, I actually haven't said all that much despite all of the losing that we've been through together. I'm angry. I'm angry. I'm pissed off, man. Where this is unacceptable, and it has to be unacceptable. Back-to-back week ones where you're embarrassed like this, back-to-back years. Back-to-back week ones where you feel like the season is over. You feel like it's over. And it shouldn't be that way. Even if you get blown out like this, but you feel like it's over. It can't just be part of this process, man. I don't have answers right now. It's bullshit. This fan base is desperate for a team to grasp onto again. They're ready. I see it every week, Bobby. I saw it today in that parking lot in L16. Hundreds of people. They're ready. They're ready to grasp, and they're ready to grasp onto this team with Shane, with Daboll, with the direction that they're heading. And you want to know what? You want to bring it back to 2021 for a hot sec, and that's a sentence you don't want to say early on in the year. Want to bring it back to 2021? They got embarrassed by a team that isn't above their weight class. The Vikings, guess what? Didn't do all that much this offseason to improve. The Giants, on paper, should have done more things to improve. So not only did they get embarrassed with the team, what makes it different from last year 40-0 is that the Cowboys were clearly above the Giants' weight class. You get embarrassed in front of a team that isn't above your weight class. Oh yeah, and let's add on top of it, Bobby, the top 100 Giants players of all time and their families were there to witness this all. So yeah, bring it back to 2021 where you're getting embarrassed in front of legends again.
That's why it's like
angry.
When you say it's compared to last year, where it's like, well, like you said, last year Dallas was supremely talented. Name me the star on the Minnesota defense.
Can't.
Name me the star on the Minnesota defense. That shit should not happen. So, Justin, I mean, it starts at the top with Daniel Jones, obviously. This was the first, regular season game since the torn ACL, since, he came back from the neck injury and tore his ACL versus the Raiders. I mean, there's no beating around the bush. I mean, it was awful. 22 of 42, 4.4 yards per attempt with 180 yards total, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, he was just awfully inaccurate, off target, making bad decisions, had no comfort, no trust in what he was seeing. And we'll talk about game plan specific, how this all happened. But I went and, did my rewatch of the game and tallied. There were 8 just flat out misses, right? Just inaccurate throws. Again, out of 42. Right, so that's a high percentage. And then there was 7 clear-cut bad decisions, right? And this is without all 22, being able to see the safety sometimes, just flat-out bad decisions, where when you go watch the all 22, usually you find a few more that you didn't see on the broadcast. And that doesn't include the pick 6, right? So we're talking about it off rip over, a third of the dropbacks being clear-cut bad decisions, and that doesn't include a pick 6. It took points off the board. It put points on the board for them. You can't blame the offensive line because they look good. You can't blame the wide receivers. I mean, this was just an awful performance from DJ.
Something that we talked about during camp. We talked about it after the Texans game. I think Daniel Jones is cooked. I think he's done. I think his confidence is shot. I think he doesn't have belief that he can make even simple throws anymore.
Nope.
And since Daniel Jones's neck, forget the ACL, Bobby, for a second. Since his neck injury that he suffered last year in 2023, where I think, he had a couple game gap in there. Since we've seen him play, like the 3 games that we've seen him play since the neck injury in 2023, it's the Raiders, where he looked awful. the preseason game versus the Texans, where he looked awful, started to make good throws against the second stringers, and the Vikings game today. And I think all three of those games have looked the same for Daniel Jones. Uncomfortable, bad, and nearly unplayable.
Oh yeah, if and you know me, I'm not the type of fan who goes, just give me the backup. It can't be worse than this, right? Because anytime people say that, it gets proven wrong, unfortunately. I also don't think Drew Lock is very good. If they move to Drew Lock, there's no one who can have a contention with that. There's no one that can have contention with that. Because he, like you said, he just, all throughout camp, Justin, there was talk about, well, he's rust. He's getting the rust off. And I'm like, you guys are using this as a defense of him, man, and that worries the shit out of me. Because we're seeing something that we've never seen before with him coming off of this injury, right? So why are we expecting that it's going to be better off of that? And it was bad. I mean, Justin, and the bad decisions, they don't include some of the quick game stuff, right? Where I was talking with somebody, and we were talking about the Jones, because he said the same thing. He's like, he's done, man. It's over. And
can you give any clue of who that somebody was?
He's not someone in the building. He's someone that just knows ball.
Okay.
And it's just quick game stuff. He's not pulling the trigger on anything, right? Because he's afraid of it getting jumped and intercepted, right? So that's just that's the stuff that he was really good at a couple of years ago. But again, he was already
afraid to pull the trigger on deep stuff, and now we're afraid to pull the trigger on the early stuff. And we're holding onto the ball, we're running around, we're taking sacks, we're scrambling for 4 or 5 yard gains when they used to be 10+ yard gains. I give it 3 weeks. I give it 3 weeks.
Yeah, they won't do it after week 1, but it's gonna happen. I counted the 8 misses, the 7 clear-cut bad decisions, Justin. You had Medalis on the Vikings get his hand on a ball underneath that was late. He stepped up into a sack where if he just stayed in his spot, Wandale was breaking open. He had an awful sack where he didn't throw hot, right? Where the free rusher came. He's like, throw the ball hot. Doesn't throw it, takes a sack. 1st and 10 at Minnesota 13, doesn't throw the ball to the flat, leads to a throwaway. The interception on 4th down the red zone. On that play, he just decides pre-snap he's throwing the Darius Slayton. If he sees that Slayton's triple covered, moves to the backside of the progression, Neighbors or Wandale may have broken open, and he had time to do it. Then he'd throw the flat again, and then on that 4th and 7 at the end of the game, down at the 9-yard line, he throws the ball to Wandale Robinson when Theo Johnson won his route and had a better chance of converting. And points were taken off the board, right? Like I just mentioned that play where, he throws the ball to Wandale on that 4th down instead of Theo Johnson. The 4th down interception, he had just a miss that kept him out of field goal range in the first half. And then taking, that sack instead of throwing hot leads to negative 11 yards. That ends in a field goal drive instead of what, hopefully could have been 6 or 7. So it was bad. Put points on the board for them, took points off the board for the Giants. It's about as bad as a performance as you can get, man, without just throwing in 5 interceptions.
And if you're into numbers like I am, I saw this tweet from Dan Pizzuta, so I appreciate him kind of looking at this. As of this afternoon, and as of around the halftime mark of the early window of games, Daniel Jones had the highest expected completion percentage of the afternoon at 79.6% per Next Gen Stats, and a lot of that was thankful to a 3.8 yard average depth of target. So you have that such a high expected completion rate because your average depth of target is so little. He completed 53.3% of his passes. That's a minus 26.2 CPOE. That's really bad. That's unplayable bad.
Yeah, it was just I don't know how many different ways we can say it, but and again, it was the offensive line played really good.
Yeah, I don't want to hear O-line and he was getting hit. I thought the O-line really played well. And also, Brian Flores didn't really bring it.
That's what I was going to say. I'm not taking an O-line victory lap yet. I got to see it against a team that has a better front four and brings it a little more. Flores was not blitzing. He was doing the illusion of blitzing and then dropping back, which we'll talk about. But Andrew Thomas pitched a perfect game pass protection-wise. JMS only gave up one pressure, no sacks, no quarterback hits. Jermaine Eleanor, two pressures. That's good for a tackle. Greg Van Roten was the worst of the bunch. He gave up 2 quarterback hits and 2 pressures. But hey, for the worst of the bunch. That's a pretty solid outing for the offensive line. And then John Runyon gave up 1 sack and 1 quarterback hit. And that was all on that like end of the half drive where the Vikings were pinning their ears back a little bit. Like the offensive line did. And it wasn't just like, oh, look at the stats. Like DJ had time to throw. Like I hadn't seen any Giants quarterback just be able to sit back in the pocket and throw like that. You know, maybe the Arizona game last year, but like we haven't really seen that in a long time. So like they look good. They looked on the same page. Like, you know, I'm actually excited to do the O-line report after a devastating week 1 loss, which is shocking to hear. But the offensive line did its job. You know, run game wasn't awful, but it wasn't really an advantage either. But the surroundings were there. Like the receivers did it. You know, they did their jobs too. It was just Daniel Jones. We'll talk about Brian Daboll a little bit on this too, but it was mostly Daniel Jones letting the guys around him down.
Yeah. I mean, he also had 9, this goes on the defense too, but he also had 9 penalties for 95 yards, which hurt. I felt like there were some good runs in there. There were some good Giants offensive plays in there that are like, oh, well, there's a flag on the play. Or there's a good Giants offensive play, and then you have 12 men on the field, or you have a delay of game penalty. I mean, this offense just isn't good enough to have these setbacks like that. And they weren't. You know, 9 penalties, and you had a football field's worth of yards that the Giants just gave to the Minnesota Vikings, and that sucked. I mean, that was on the defense too, where there were some bogus calls on the defense, but yeah, and the face mask penalty isn't great, but on the offensive side of the ball, you can't have those penalties, especially if it's like procedural stuff. You just can't have
delay a game and shit like that.
Yeah, delay a game followed from a stoppage. I don't know what the stoppage was, but it was the delay of game that was followed by a stoppage beforehand. It's bullshit. You can't have it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Brian Daboll, because it obviously ties into Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll's first game play calling for the Giants, first official game.
But do you want to talk about something first?
Yeah, let's talk about something first, Justin.
Let's talk about something first. And this episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan, the official spice rum sponsor of the NFL. I know a couple of you Giants fans are going to be cozying up next to some Captain, watching this Sunday night. Hey, we're live for Patreon right now, watching some Sunday Night Football or some Monday Night Football tonight, where the Jets will be taking on the 49ers. And did you know that Captain Morgan is the official spice rum sponsor of the NFL? Legends start when you follow the captain, so we can't think of a better way to usher in a legendary 100th season than with a legendary adventure with Captain Morgan. And also, listen to this. Giants 100th season, well, you could join Victor Cruz on September 26th when the Giants take on the Cowboys for an immersive game day experience, the Captain's Cruise with Cruz. How do you like that? Fans 21 and over in the tri-state area can enter for a chance to attend, and if you're not near the New York area, you could be the lucky winner who gets to grab a member of your crew to get flown to New York City to be part of how the Captain does game day. So head to followthecaptain.com by September 19th to win a Tailgate experience like no other. That follows thecaptain.com. No purchase necessary, US 21 plus, 25 plus for grand prize. Ends 3/5/25, subject to drawing deadlines for specific prizes, subject to rules at www.captainmorgan.com/followthecaptain. Sponsor, Diego Americas Incorporated in New York, New York. Captain Morgan Original Spice Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York, New York. Drink responsibly. Captain's orders. You'll be glad you did. That's pretty cool.
You'll be glad you did. So with Brian Daboll, the first thing I want to blame on him, because we'll talk about like how much he's to blame in this. The one thing that is 100% his fault was the pick six. I mean, 100%.
What was that formation?
Dude, it was nuts. So
I've never seen. You know what's really funny? I was with Jolly Al sitting next to me. I'm like, what is this formation? It looks like they were in trips right, offset, and not tight with the line of scrimmage, Bobby. It was trips right, offset from the line of scrimmage, and then you also had a far wide receiver that was flanked to the outside. I've never seen that ever before.
So and I said this in the moment. I was like, who would have guessed that? You know, and you know, motioning Wan'Dale Robinson in behind a bunch of trips would be a screen, because it was so obvious. As soon as you saw that, like, okay, they're throwing a screen pre-snap, right? That's something that goes through my head. And it turns into a pick six. And that one, even if there's no quote out there, I'm coming on this podcast saying that's Brian Daboll's fault 100%. That throw is not Daniel Jones' fault. He was throwing a screen. right? You cannot be mad at a defensive end catching a screen pass that is catch and throw. It's one thing if he holds on to it, and then throws it. No, he caught it, threw it like he was supposed to do. Andrew Van Ginkel, the guy who intercepted it and turned it into a pick six, who I also think is the guy who injured Daniel Jones' neck last year. He said, I saw what they were in, and I saw what set they were in, and he just threw it to me. I knew he had to throw it quick, and he just threw it right to me. So people took that quote and been like, "Oh, Daniel Jones, oh my gosh, no respect." No, that's a shot at Brian Daboll. You're in trips bunch wide. You motion Wan'Dale Robinson behind it. Of course you're throwing that, right? Everyone saw that. So that's the big thing with Brian Daboll. The other thing will be the heavy personnel usage, the lack of throwing the ball 20 plus yards down the field. I think they had 0 throws. If there was one, it was
0. Jordan Ronan texted me the next gen stuff after the game, so it was 0.
Yeah, I think it was like at 19, like maybe 20, but 20 plus yards there. So they came out in this heavy personnel using 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. I mean, getting really heavy, which again, I'll say if you're going to do that, why wouldn't Jakob Johnson be on the roster when you only have 51 guys?
Wait, save that point. Remember that at a third and 1 at a fucking empty. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so we'll
talk
about that. Here is why Brian Daboll did that, and the thinking behind it is not stupid. It's because of the way the Vikings play defense, where it's chaos, right? And you don't necessarily trust Daniel Jones to not make the mistakes against a chaos defense like that. Because if you get back in gun, you get wide, they're gonna create negative. So there's that. So the thinking is, Daboll wants to get in heavy formations because you can't play all those. You can't play like that defensively against heavy formations under center or 2 tight end. You can't. You got to line up and play your gap type of shit. You got to get some bigger guys on the field. So that's the thing. But the reality is that the Giants weren't great at those plays, and it just led to third downs, which is where the Vikings do make their money on those chaos plays, because it's boom or bust plays where a 4-yard gain is a success for the defense most of the time, where it's not that on 1st and 10. So, and the Vikings did exactly what we talked about. What did I talk about on the preview pod, Justin? Where I'm like, a lot of times on third down, they're showing all this shit, and then they drop 7-8, right? They'll drop 8 guys and rush 3. And that's what they did the entire time. It was essentially the 49ers game plan last year, but opposite, where the 49ers lined up off the ball, like, hey, take this quick game stuff, and they drove in on it. Where Flores lined up everybody around, moving guys around, and then would drop back into your basic coverages. Jones wouldn't trust it because he was afraid of someone picking him off, and it just led to bad football on third down. And they faced a lot of third downs because of the way Jones played and Daboll called the game on 1st and 2nd down.
Yeah, so they were 7 for 18 on third down, but 18 third downs faced is abysmal. And great, the Vikings were 3 for 10 on third down, but they only faced 10 third downs, where the Giants almost faced double the amount of third downs as the Vikings did.
Yeah, 18 third downs is insane for
it's terrible.
A game.
It's terrible. And that's what you talked about the schematic part of it, and I talked about the statistical part of it on the preview pod of the Giants are not going to win this game if you're facing third and long. Or they're not. The Giants are going to be winning this game if they face a lot of third downs, and if you are going to be facing third downs, you better make sure that they're 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, where there's an opportunity to maybe run the ball, or you can go for it if you cut it in half, right? And they just didn't do it. They just didn't do it, man. I have the rebuttal to your, well, Brian Daboll had to use the heavier personnel because you want to combat what Brian Flores is doing. The Vikings don't have these stud players, man. They don't. They don't have Danielle Hunter anymore. Andrew Van Ginkel's good. Jonathan Grenard is good. Ivan Pace is good. They have some solid secondary players. I like their safeties. They have 3 solid safeties, but nobody's a superstar, man. I really thought the whole point of this summer was, you know what? Who cares what the quarterback is good at? We're going to ask him to throw the damn ball. We have a personnel that of 4 wide receivers that we're going to use them. We're going to use 3 of them on the field at all times. And we can alternate, Robinson can come out for some plays, and you have Hyatt that comes in for others, where you have a speedy trio of Slayton, Hyatt, and Neighbors. Or Wan'Dale comes in, Hyatt comes out, and then you have the slot receiver and then your 2 outside guys, right? I thought that's what this year was going to be about. And I thought we were going to say F everything else. And, I don't care if Brian Flores is showing whatever. Brian Flores can show whatever the fuck he wants. I want my best football players out there. I don't want Chris Manhertz, Daniel Bellinger, and 2 wide receivers out there on a 3rd and 7 because I'm worried about the looks that Brian Flores are going to give me. Put the best damn players out there and practice what you've been preaching this entire summer. They went back. I know it's only week 1. They went back on everything that they wanted to identify themselves with this summer. Everything.
And this is one of those things you do have to wait a little bit for the all-22 for, but what you don't have to wait for the all-22 to say 0 throws of 20-plus yards, that is unacceptable. And, you know what would have been a great time for one? The play where I said where they had the free rusher and Daniel Jones could have thrown hot to the hitch. That would have been like a 4-yard gain. You know what he also could have thrown hot on that? Malik Neighbors on the fade. Because guess what? Because they're blitzing like that, you have man coverage. So you can just hike that. You could snap that ball and throw that, right? If you don't feel comfortable throwing the hitch because you think the corner might be crouching on it, even though the corner wouldn't have made that play unless he's the best corner in the NFL. Like throw that, right? So 0 throws of it are there. So the question is, how much of it were they calling, or were they calling it and Daniel Jones wasn't throwing it, or were they just not calling it? But I did see just way too much quick game, especially on the 3rd down stuff. And again, that plays into their hand. That plays into the Vikings' hands because, like you said, another thing I said on the preview pod. I think we did a pretty good job with the preview pod. It's like you gotta fight fire with fire because when they are sending those rushes, if they send them, they don't have the guys to cover down the field, and they also know that you are trying to get the ball out quick versus that stuff. So when they back out of it, they're covering the short area of the field, which can leave you vulnerable.
Yeah.
So they I think they did a bad job. You mentioned the runs, the 3rd and 2 QB sweep.
The 3rd and 1, man. That was the play that pissed me off the most out of any play this game. 3rd and 1. And this isn't even like why isn't Jakob Johnson on the roster point, but if there's one play to put 12 personnel in there, Chris Manhertz, Daniel Bellinger, and Devin Singletary and get 36 inches, it's that. And Daboll's explanation after the game, a good job on the reporters for asking him, hey, what was the decision with going with that play call? Yeah, that's just something that we've practiced and we've installed and we thought it would work and it didn't. When has Daniel Jones is not Josh Allen? When has Daniel Jones as a designed runner, I would say it catches you off guard on early downs. I don't think that shit's catching you off guard on a 3rd and 1. Give it to your running back. 36 inches.
Yeah,
now you go empty. Now you went empty on 3rd and 1.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And then, with 3 minutes left in the 3rd quarter, down 22, he punts the ball on 4th and 3. So stuff like that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if Daniel Jones does his job, we're not talking a ton about Brian
Daniel Jones is
calling.
terrible. It was bad. This isn't all on Brian Daboll, but also Brian Daboll isn't excused from this.
Right.
What do you think of the whole? Is Brian Daboll calling this offense like he is afraid of his quarterback? Yes,
Today,
right?
Against the Vikings, he did. Right.
Yeah.
Now it's like, how much will that continue? Because the Vikings are a very different defense than you're going to be facing on a week in, week out basis.
Right.
But if he was facing the Vikings with a different QB, we might not get that type of game plan. So that is 100% part of it, 100% part of it. And you can't do that, right? And that's where you're like, oh my God, you may actually have to fucking make the switch to Drew Lock, because you can't have that type of play, right? That can't be accepted. And if they want to make a decision, there's no doubt in doing it. Jalen Hyatt ran 6 routes.
Yeah.
4 snaps in the first half. There is something deeper there.
Feels like there has to be, right? Doesn't feel like it's just a game plan thing.
Second half of the Texans game, you had players going and consoling with him. He was standing away from everybody else. Then all of a sudden, next practice, Jalen Hyatt's getting reps with the second team. Something that did not happen all of camp up until that point. All of camp. And didn't take a single second team snap. I talked all offseason, probably a little too much, about how someone's not going to be happy there between Slayton and Hyatt. I did not think the unhappiness would be this strong and this quickly. There is an issue between Hyatt and them where he's not happy the fact that Slayton won the job. Because, I mean, they were forcing Hyatt into that wide receiver 2 role.
Early in camp.
You know, and he is now just a flat-out backup. Not a rotate you in guy. He is a flat-out backup. And this is a guy they traded up in the 3rd round for a year and 4 months ago. There's an issue there. There's an issue. He is not happy with how things have went down. They are not happy with how he's handled it. There's an issue there. Like, we can talk about the rest of the receivers. Neighbors did look good. On pace for 1,100 yards. Pretty cool. How about that, Malik Neighbors?
Did they show on TV at all that he was getting a little frustrated?
No, they did not.
He was getting a little bit. I mean, I don't know what he was saying, and
I'm excited to see the all 22 to see who's been open and what was missed and stuff like that.
Right.
If there's anyone who should be a little frustrated, it'd be Theo Johnson. Now he did have that drop on the first drive, but Jones just missed him flat out twice. Right, one would have been a nice 15+ yard play, another one which would have been a catch and run, and then that 4th and 7 that very well could have been the man's first touchdown. We're talking about a guy who had a 1-yard catch for 18 yards, nice catch up at the seam, where he could have had like a 4-catch, 52 yards and a touchdown debut.
I know. I drafted him in fantasy. Our fantasy draft, of course, on the preview pod. What was I going to say?
Place, by the way.
What was I going to? Congratulations.
But yeah, Neighbors look really good.
Do you want to touch more on the Hyatt stuff? Because I feel like
that's it. There's an issue there.
And that's great. I mean, that's just great because it's...
I'm excited to watch JMS so I can have something to be happy about from that draft class.
No, but if you're Hyatt, even if you're not starting this year, man, there still is a role for Jalen Hyatt. If he's a good soldier and he puts his head and he works hard.
Yeah, I wanted Slayton to start. Hyatt shouldn't be getting that many snaps.
But there's still a role for him on this team if he's not going to be... And I don't know if this is the case, man. But if he's going to be an asshole about it, which again, I don't know if that's the case. If he's going to be an asshole about it, then there is no role for you on this team. Because if you're going to go against the coaching staff, do whatever. But he should see the writing on the wall that Darius Slayton, it's the last year on his deal. He wanted the Giants to give him a pay raise. The Giants didn't give him a pay raise. Odds are this is his last year in blue. So even if Jalen Hyatt isn't a full-time starter this year, the writing would be on the wall that he would be here next year. So guess what? Be a good soldier, man, and get better.
Yeah. And guess what? If you were playing in that rotational role, which you would be if there's no issues, you would eventually create some big plays, and then you would force your way on the field, which is exactly what happened last year. He made some big plays versus the Cardinals. Like, all right, we kind of got to start phasing him in. Hodgins out, even though Hodgins was better on a down in, down out basis. So there's that. But yeah, Malik Neighbors looked really good. Didn't have
what's the phrase? I don't care, work harder, something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Kind of applies.
That's a new phrase. But Malik Neighbors looked good. 5 catches, 66 yards, 7 targets. He got a lot of attention too, especially on those money downs. So like he's good. And that is on pace. Let me do the exact on pace number because I want to have something to be happy about after this game. Let's go 66.
I find it very also you watch
17.
Hold do your math. I find it very hard to believe, and this is still yet another offensive system that we're watching the Giants try and operate. And then you see like these play action attempts that the Vikings have with Justin Jefferson. And it's like, all right, well, Sam Darnold's just going to easy roll to his right, boop, pitch and catch. Justin Jefferson is just open on a hitch route or a comeback, something down on the sideline, and it's easy 8-9 yards. It's like we can't have easy plays. Nothing comes easy. Nothing.
Yeah.
How many yards is he on pace for?
He's on pace for 85 catches, 1,122 yards, and 0 touchdowns.
That's a terrific year, but 0 touchdowns would be very funny.
Yeah. Please don't do that. That would be very fitting. You wouldn't even be happy about that 1,100 yards if he had 0 touchdowns. Is there anything else offensively before we talk about the defense?
No, in a way, I feel like we didn't even talk about Jones enough. I mean, we'll talk about him on the. I don't want to.
12 straight minutes on him.
I don't want to give any declarations on, if I want him gone tomorrow, or we'll talk about that on the mailbag, I guess. And watch.
Here's what I'll say: if it comes out Tuesday, when they get back to the building Wednesday, and it's Drew Lock as a starter, I am not flinching at that.
No, I'm not either, man.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. But that's where I'm at. Where I'm like, I'm not doing I still think he might be a little bit better.
I think he's.
We can't judge DJ on his whole body of work, which again isn't even that good. Like you said, when we've seen him recently, it's been the worst version
of his career.
Yeah, we're going on stretches of just like the worst version of him.
Yep.
Defensively, Justin, before we talk about the defense, why don't you talk to us about something?
What do you want me to do? Oh, we're going back to back.
Yeah, there's an audio message I want to listen to. So why don't you talk to us about something?
All right. Now let's talk about TaskRabbit. Every week, there's a never-ending list of projects around the house that we tell ourselves, I'm finally going to get to it. The honey-do list is something that my mother would always give to my father growing up. Honey-do this, honey-do that. But then Saturday morning comes and suddenly mounting a TV, building a dresser, cleaning out the garage just doesn't sound all that appealing, especially when you got college football on. Dylan Raiola, Nebraska Cornhuskers are back. Rutgers has a really good running back. Rutgers is back. Hello. For all the tasks that you need to do, but then you don't want to do, there's TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit connects you with skilled taskers to help with cleaning, moving, furniture assembly, home repairs, and more. Guess what? I recently booked a tasker on TaskRabbit. What I did is my sister had a piece of furniture. My sister lives in a group home. She has autism, and she lives in a group home, and I wanted a tasker to come and build her a piece of furniture, and it was seamless. The process was awesome. They showed up, they were in and out within an hour, and left the place cleaner than when they showed up. And to get started, I want you to go to TaskRabbit.com, download the app, search for the best tasker for your job based on cost, skill set, availability, and past client reviews. Tackle your to-do list today and get 15% off your first task at TaskRabbit.com or on the TaskRabbit app. Use promo code GIANTS. That's promo code GIANTS at TaskRabbit.com for 50% off your task. TaskRabbit, booked, trusted help for home tasks. You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. I'm so mad at Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux. Right? Where even though I did expect more out of Daniel Jones, I wasn't expecting greatness or even really goodness. I was not expecting much out of the secondary, especially when the one guy that people do have trust in was facing Justin Jefferson. I was worried about this coming into this game, right? Justin, I hate to keep referencing the preview pod, but I went and watched Brian Burns versus the Vikings last year. It was a bad performance. It was bad. It was not good. And I made Kayvon Thibodeaux my giant factor because last year doesn't overly impress me, right? So it's like, all right, you are the 5th overall pick in year 3. You need to do something. Brian Burns, they did not just trade just pay Brian Burns. They traded a 2nd round pick, a 5th round pick, had to pay him that money, which meant letting other guys, good players, walk, which created losing a 2nd round draft pick and then using the other 2nd round draft pick to replace one of the guys you let walk and Xavier McKinney. You can't just be a guy who's good here and there, who is 30th in pass rush win rate, but gets 9 to 11 sacks every year and has amazing highlight plays. You got to be good week in, week out. He had 1 pressure. Kayvon Thibodeaux had 1 QB hit. So between the two, they matched the production pass rush wise of DJ Davidson. DJ Davidson was their 2nd best pass rusher with 1 QB hit and 1 pressure. And it looked better too when DJ Davidson did it, even though it did give up a touchdown on his QB hit play. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence balled out, right? 1 sack, 1 QB hit, 6 pressures. One of the QB hit led to an interception. So Dexter Lawrence balled. We knew he was going to ball, but I was worried about feel like a lot of people are just counting their eggs that these edges are going to be really good, and they were awful. They were pitiful. They were worse than what I was even worried about them being. Justin, I'm not mad at this secondary. I can't be mad at this secondary when your edge rushers do that. This is supposed to be a defense that creates negatives by those 2 guys, and they laid an egg.
And it looks like they were going to do it. Early on in the game, and first drive of the game, Dexter Lawrence gets a sack, and thanks for Doug Analytics for pulling this up. Dexter Lawrence generated 7 pressures on 19 pass rushes, 36.8% pressure rate. That was the highest rate of his career. And Lawrence also had an elite get-off of 0.81 seconds, which would have been the fourth highest among all defensive tackles with 250 pass rush snaps last season, Bobby Skinner. So, I mean, I think a wasted effort of Dexter Lawrence, who I said it on our football show. I said it on our on Football Today that this of course requires the Giants being not a disastrous football team, but I think Dexter Lawrence has the potential and the ability to put up defensive player of the year type of numbers from the nose tackle position. I still think that's true. They started off the game tremendous. Dexter Lawrence absolutely dominated the game from start to finish. And honestly, like, I even give Nacho credit. Like, early on in the game, Nacho was really involved in stuff, and they were both making plays on the interior. And besides one play where Brian Burns had a nice spin move and it resulted in a QB hit, that was it. That was the only play that I saw from the edge rushers from that game.
Yeah, Burns had that, and Kayvon had that outside. Yeah, it was just flat out bad from them. And Dexter Lawrence showed up. He held up his end of the bargain, and nobody else did. So we're talking about the pass rush, right? And something we've been worried about, since the Brian Burns trade, right? Where it's like, and now Burns is going to have great games, and Burns is going to look dominant at times.
He's probably going to have a great game against Washington next week.
Yeah, Kayvon's the one I'm actually more worried about, even though I expect more out of Brian Burns, because I know Burns can be really good throughout an entire season, even though he's going to have stinker games. Kayvon's the one where I'm like, dude, your metrics are really bad, and your production last year did come against backups. You can't take that away. There's not everyone can do that, but Kayvon's the one I'm actually more worried about, because it's like, if Kayvon plays like he did last year and this year with 4 less sacks, which is very real, like, what type of contract is that player getting? Like, and that's where I'm like, I want to give Kayvon a big contract. So Kayvon's the one I'm actually more worried about, because it's year 3, right? There's no more time. There's no more young and growing. This is when you're supposed to hit your freaking stride.
Yeah.
And they both laid eggs. I don't care how good of a tackle duo the Minnesota Vikings is. Like,
that's why you drafted a guy 5th overall, and that's why you traded for a guy and you gave him $30 million a year. That's why.
Absolutely. Can't get that. Defensive scheme stuff, we will hit a little bit on the mailbag pod, but what I will say is, like, Flott went back to nickel.
Why?
Which he essentially got no practice at that in the entire summer.
Nope. And Drew Phillips actually made some, Drew Phillips' first fumble. I don't know what he did in coverage, but
he only had 7 snaps, and he had he gave up that catch to Addison, but it was a stop, and then Banks gave up the touchdown on the 4th down. So it's like, why isn't Drew Phillips just playing the nickel, which was the plan all along?
Yep.
And Flott gave up the touchdown on the little pump from Darnold, faked him out. He bit on it, and then Jalen Naylor gets the touchdown. So it's like, why is he playing this? Adore Jackson didn't get much run. He did have that missed tackle, but the pass interference was bullshit.
It was bullshit.
I'm not going to complain about that in the grand picture, because the Giants got a bullshit holding call earlier in that drive. But just as far as evaluation of Adore Jackson, that was a good play. That wasn't a negative on him. So he'll be starting most likely next week, because McLeod kind of is not it either. I mean, he got targeted a couple times on the sideline. What did you think of Banks, though? Because I didn't get to focus in on him besides when he was being targeted. He gave up the big play to Jefferson, then the touchdown. Gave up 3 catches for 56 yards in that touchdown. I mean, both those reps were obviously really ugly, but did you get to focus in on him a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, the play on the sideline stunk because Jefferson just beat him. I mean, Jefferson was 3 steps in front of him. The sideline throws, I feel like it's just Deonte Banks giving cushion. Here's what makes me a little upset from him on the touchdown, and then it's also a little bit on Bowen on that 4th down touchdown. Was there an opportunity for Deonte Banks to possibly make a play on that football?
He played it pretty well. I mean, he did put his hand in the football, but Jefferson's... there's not any corner in the NFL I'm really trusting in that spot.
So that's number 1. And number 2, why are we not doubling Justin Jefferson in the red zone on 4th down? Force them to go somewhere else.
Yeah, because Justin Jefferson is the ultimate. Like, all right, if you do this, he's going to get open.
That is an easy pre-snap read. It's an easy pre-snap read for Sam Darnold. Oh, Justin Jefferson, fourth down in the red zone with Deontay. Not even, forget what corner.
They motioned away from it, too. They motioned the guy from the left to the right, and it gave it away that it was man coverage, right?
It's an easy pre-snap read. Easy touchdown.
Like, you need to have either the end drop back and take away that inside, that easy inside read, or what? Like, you can't just run a zero blitz at fourth down and 2 with just straight up one-on-one. You can't do that. So that's what I will talk about schematically defensively.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the defense, again, like I said, it only gave up 21 points and 312 yards, which is not bad, but and created 2 turnovers too.
But also, I mean, they allowed those points. They allowed those points, and they allowed they forced those turnovers. But the Vikings only ran 29 plays. Sam Darnold had an EPA per play in the 89th percentile, and he has CPOE in the 96th percentile. So,
29 play. You mean? Wait, what?
Sorry, Sam Darnold had 29 plays. My apologies. My apologies.
I was like, that's a record.
Sam Darnold only had 29 plays. So, but they still, I feel like they got ran all. At certain points they got ran all over. They allowed some plays of rushing plays of 10+ yards. Deontay Banks had a really nice play tackling, but I feel like there were some other DBs that missed some tackles.
McLeod was bad. Adoree Jackson missed a tackle. Tyler
Nubin, I actually thought was a bright spot coming up and playing the run and being physical. So I'm really excited to see how Tyler Nubin grows and progresses as the year goes on. I mean, some of the rookies, I think Andrew Phillips had some nice tackles at one point too. So, but I think they got beat up. They got beat up defensively.
Yeah. I actually thought like the run defense on the front 7 was good. It was just like you mentioned, the DBs gave up some plays in the run game.
And speaking of doing one thing the entire summer, then doing something different. Why is Darius Moasau the second linebacker?
He did have an interception.
He was pretty bad.
I agree. I just think they don't like Isaiah Simmons, but I don't understand why he wasn't out there on third down at least.
At least third down in coverage. I feel like he's got to be better. He
should be out there on third down over Moasau, and he didn't get a single snap.
Nope, not a single snap, and that's what we were. It's what we were doing this entire summer. Is Isaiah Simmons is a staple of not a staple.
And McFadden dressed, by the way, and he didn't get a single snap either. Like, why was he dressed and not on the injury? Like, there was no doubtful or questionable. He was just off the injury report. Like, what's going on with that?
Yep.
Let's see. Defensively, that's basically it. Here's something that bothers me, and I kept quiet about it over the weekend because it was just like these cap games they're playing. But they only have 51 guys on the roster, right? Of the available 53 slots, because they're trying to keep as many vets who they're not worried about leaving off the roster, so their contracts don't get guaranteed, like Carter Coughlin.
Bit him right back in the ass.
A thing that won't be remembered in this game is that Gunnar Olszewski, who's been battling with an injury for weeks, gets re-injures himself in pregame warmups. Justin, they didn't have a backup punt returner, so you have 2 open spots on the roster. You don't use one of those practice squad elevations as a returner. You had and that's the other thing. I don't know if it was the same problem in the stadium. You can't see the fucking numbers with these awful jerseys. Please burn these jerseys.
I had an issue with that. Like, that's why I thought
burn these jerseys. Never show up in them again.
I thought the pass interference call was on Tyler Nubin, and then people told me that it was Adoree Jackson. I have never had Bobby. I've been coming to games.
Cordell Flott was returning that punt.
I have been coming. Darius Slayton looked 86, looked like 88 the entire game. I've been coming to games since 2005. That was the hardest time I had seeing who was who in my entire life.
I had no idea who was who the entire game. It was brutal. Except for like Dexter Lawrence.
I'm glad you had the same experience at home that I had sitting up and talking to God up there.
Brutal. It reminded me of Joe Judge when he's like, we don't put names on the back of the pictures because we want to get to know these guys' body types and stuff. And I was like,
I was sitting next to Jolly. And for the first 10 whole minutes of the game, every single play, I'm talking out loud the personnel packages because I'm like, who is on the field right now? It's like, I don't know.
But Darius Slayton is that punt returner and massively screws it up, which I'm not going to blame Slayton on that. It's like, why is there no plan to have a backup punt returner, right? So that
has been an issue for years.
Yeah. Like, glad Gunner's on the team. Let's have someone who can, bring someone on the practice squad who can catch punts. Is Richie James? Never mind. He drops them too. So, I mean, that was it. That was that really cool special teams play they had where they got the ball at the 1 yard line and then the Vikings drove 99 yards.
Yeah.
So you don't remember it a ton. But you do like that. Justin, let me talk to you about something before we talk about Dex crying about people booing and then the tailgate and stuff. Today's episode of Talk Giants is brought to you by AG1. Baby, what is AG1? You're like, what is it? AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support and is backed by multiple research studies so you can trust what you're putting in your body. This has more nutrients than eagle eggs. AG1 is like daily self-care for me. I know that I'm doing at least one good thing for my body every day when I start my day with AG1. It's a lot better than when I'm bashing my head up against the wall because of the New York Giants. AG1 contains prebiotics, probiotics, and gut-supporting ingredients to support your digestion, reduce bloating, and keep you regular. In research study, 80% of participants noticed less gas and bloating after 30 days of drinking AG1. In a research study, 97% of participants felt digestion improved after 90 days of drinking AG1. So start with AG1 and notice the difference for yourself. It's a great first step to investing in your health, and that's why we're so excited to be partnering with them. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1, the number one.com/Giants. That's a $48 value for free if you go to drinkag1.com/Giants. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. Why do the guys that we love the most do this? I don't respect them for booing. We're going through a rough patch. Well, one, it's been a little more than a rough patch. Just say the fans have the right to boo and move on. I don't understand why they pick this fight every time. It's like, well, Dexter Lawrence, you're the one player we're like super stoked with, Andrew Thomas too, and you go out and do this. So now people are mad at you, the guy who was literally created a turnover. Like, everything that good happened today was a product of you, and now people are pissed at you. Just and the other thing is booing. There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
I love booing. I was tweeting out boo every time. I love hearing the boos. Like, I don't understand why guys do this.
Do you want to hear what I said to Jolly after the game?
Boo?
No. I said to Jolly, listen to what I have to say, and I'm going to say it very loud. And I got a couple people to turn around and laugh, which was my goal. I said, okay, but what if we decided to burn down the stadium?
yeah. Like,
I said
just
that very
be happy
loud.
We're not putting, your safety at risk by burning this thing down.
Because we very much could. They can't stop all of us.
Yeah. Everyone who was wearing one of those Century Red jerseys should have burnt it all in unison.
Booing is the least of the issues that we could have this year.
Yeah. Trust me. This could get ugly. Like, I'm serious. Like, this season could get really ugly.
I had a thought today.
And being in the stadium makes you so much more mad than when you're watching it on TV. So in my mind, as mad as I was, I'm like, if I was in the stadium right now, I would be losing my mind.
No, it's also thousands of dollars that come out of my pocket too. Just makes it even better. I had a thought. That Panthers game is going to take on a whole new meaning.
I can't wait for it, right? I still have confidence we're beating the Panthers. That's the only team. But I still have confidence we're beating the Panthers. Here's another thing. Dude, so I was doing a little like pre-prep for football today, tomorrow. Here's something if there's still like some Daniel Jones defenders, go through every quarterback's stats this week. It seemed like every guy had 140 yards. It was like unbelievable. Every game it was like 120 yards, 130 yards, 140 yards, 4.5 yards. It was unbelievable.
Also, this is very important.
Even Anthony Richardson had like 2 of the best plays of the week. He had 9 completions.
Really?
Yeah.
Then they
went
scored
9 and 19.
They scored almost 30 points.
The throws were nuts, but he only completed 9 passes.
I'm pretty sure he broke the next gen chart where he went over like 50, 60 air yards. So here's something very significant, which I forgot to talk about. It is very clear. Now we all know this between Hard Knocks and everything like that. I have never heard the Giants WFAN radio network talk about Daniel Jones and Bob Papa in the way that they have today. It was like a switch was flipped. Bob Papa talking about how, oh, you really need a quarterback that needs to elevate everyone else around him, and inaccurate throws and taking sacks. And Papa just went back to that point. I just don't know if Daniel Jones is, Daniel Jones hasn't been able to elevate people around him. And I'm like, this is extremely different from what we've heard in years past, but it also very much matches up what I think the front office wants to portray currently right now, and the Giants talking heads have also turned the other way too.
Yeah, and we'll hit some stuff this week, but yeah, there's not a lot of good vibes around anything right now.
No, I just thought that was very interesting. It wasn't like, usually after the game, it's like, oh well, Joel, there were some dropped passes, and they execution week 1. There was no Jones is coming off the ACL and looking rusty, and they very much could have done that. They very much chose to not go down that path. The Giants radio network in their post-game analysis, they were as critical of Daniel Jones as I've ever heard them. And I found that to be very significant.
Yeah, it's over for DJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how was the tailgate? It looked like a lot of people showed up. I was a little surprised.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I think we had over 100 people there at some point. It's awesome. It's my favorite part of what we do whenever we get to have in-person events. It sucks that we don't get to do as many watch parties as what we've wanted to do, just because of this team and the state that they're in. Hey, maybe if they turn it around a little bit, we'll have some. But tailgates were awesome. The food was awesome. Corona, they were part of it. Firefighter Energy was part of it too. Everybody had their Coronas. Everybody had their food. I talked to a lot of different people, and the main takeaway was that people were excited, and people were very excited to be back in the stadium. Excited.
I brought back good morning videos, which again are going away again after that output. Did you see the good morning video? Because I didn't tell you about it.
No, I didn't see it. Well, the fact that a Viking is a person, so it's totally fine.
That's the other thing, is we were safe because people are fine with people getting killed. They don't like seeing animals getting killed.
Which is strange society. Tailgate was awesome, and thank you to everybody that came by. There was a lot of Patreon members. There's people that are coming from international. There's people that are coming from like upstate New York, like by Canada. There's people that are coming from down south. England. I can't keep track of where everybody comes from. For a Giants game, and then the fact that you're choosing to, spend some time with us. It really means the world, man.
It looked like a great time. I was worried that it'd be a little chaotic, and everything looked good. So
no,
if it was chaotic, you guys did a good job of hiding it.
I think it was the best tailgate that we've ever had.
Good. I really I was worried you were going to come out livid with how it went down. So I'm glad.
I loved it. I loved it.
Cool.
Hey, here's my only. Here's my only request.
That's the thing to look forward to if you're trying to look forward to something. The Talking Giants tailgates. Here's my
only request. I don't know how much we have after this, but here's my only request as we end this show. And if you're listening to for the first time, great, welcome. I love that you're here. I wish that we could be more happy, but the Giants don't.
Yeah, I know.
Don't allow us to. But the other thing is I hope.
We're gaining some family members today, Justin, and they're like, these guys are sad.
No matter what this season is like, I hope, even if you're not going to stick with the Giants fully, I hope you stick with us. That's the only ask that I'm going to have, because this could get rough. And then, hey, maybe April will be fun. April and May will be really fun, and we'll crush that, but I don't even want to think about that. But stick with us. Stick with us through the season, because, we won't always be this whiny and complaining. We'll bring you some good stuff. We'll analyze it all, and we'll do it the best that we can. So just stick with us through this. Week 1, yes. I'm saying this.
Yes.
Week 1.
Again, we have new family members who don't realize they're part of the Talking Giants family that are listening for the first time. So soon enough, you'll be one of us. Soon enough, you'll be like, bring that back. Why don't you guys do that anymore? Who cares if you're losing followers by the thousands? All right, that's an episode. We'll be back on Wednesday for a mailbag. O-line report film review will be out on Tuesday, and then another preview pod on Friday. We appreciate you guys. I know the season's just getting started. So let's get better, as Brian Daboll would say. We got to go back and look at that. So we're going to go back and look at it, and we'll get better. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.